welcome to I know I say this every time, a double wrap up for March and April that I didn't want to film. I don't read very quickly. Like, I'm a slow reader and I'm a mood reader, and this month I have been very much approaching reading as a read what you want, quality over quantity type of vibe. So like, yes, is my goal to get my TBR cut in half? Absolutely. Like, my physical TBR down to half. That is the goal. Do I have any like number goals set up for this year? No, I'm just going off of vibes. I'm going off of DNFing. A whole like hodgepodge of what I'm feeling. I'm trying to get that spark back that I had like 2 years ago. We are going to combine March and April, because I think we might have to combine May and June. I don't know. I might actually end up reading like 7 books in May, so that would be its own. Who knows? The past 2 months have been excellent reading months. I have to use my tablet because I record on my phone. So grab a cup of tea and sit in for, I don't know, however long this video is of yapping. I want this to feel like you're on FaceTime with your bestie. Okay, maybe not. That's a little too, I don't know. I have to vacuum my floor. I'm going to talk about books that I read in the order that I read them, with very little to no spoilers at all, and then I'm going to give you like my vibes, the ratings, and stuff like that. I want to give stats, but every time I do that, the videos end up being hella long, and I hate editing them, so I will just put the stats here on screen real quick for March. And the first book that I read was A Tempest of Tea by Hassel Faisal. I love this. First off, I gave it 5 stars. I have to start there. This is my first Hassel Faisal book. I gave it 5 stars. So this little strategy in my head of I'm reading, like, if an author has a backlist book I want to read, but they have a new book coming out in 2024, I'm starting with the new book and then going back to the backlist, because I'm like, I don't suggest you do that. I just want to give them a shot to see, because most of the time it's outside of their comfort zone writing. So if they can write really good outside of their comfort zone, then in their comfort zone must be amazing. So I'm super excited to read her first duology. Tempest of Tea, you are following Arthi, who is the owner of a tea shop called Spindrift, and in the daytime they serve tea to like all of the politicians and the wealthy people of their town, but at night they turn into a blood house for vampires. It's a very dapper book. It's very elegant. Arthi is a very angry main character, and she's playing the system the way that it needs to be played. This book talks a lot about colonization and colonialism. It talks a lot about immigration. It talks a lot about like people not like having to work the system in order to gain power, and then how that's seen. It has a huge found family cast in it, and you get 3 point of views. You get Arthi's, Jen's, and Flick's. As I was reading it, I was getting to like, I don't know, the last 80 pages. I think I was probably, hold on, chapter 52, and I went, oh, this is book 1 in something. It's book 1 in a duology. I didn't know that, but book 2 has been announced. I'm so excited. I cannot wait. Also, thank you so much to Macmillan for giving me the audio arc of this book. The audiobook was just beautifully done, to the point where I was tandem reading with the physical copy when I got it and listening to the audio arc at the same time. The narrator, amazing job. I hope that they bring the same narrator back for book 2. I would not be surprised if they did, because it was just phenomenal. The world building, the characters, everything, just like, I loved it so much. I got this copy signed at a book signing when she was on book tour. She stopped here in Michigan, and of course I went, because why wouldn't I go? A book that really sparked that quality over quantity and reading an author's like newest book and then their backlist, and that is Outdrawn by Deanna Gray. This was the best book I've read ever. Like, the best romance book. Like, this is like a top tier god romance book for me. And I started this back in November, and I soft DNF'd it because I was like, it's just me. Like, it's me, it's not the book. And then I started reading it slowly throughout February and March. I fell in love with Noah and Sage and Deanna Gray's writing, and like, if you couldn't tell, it's annotated. Like, I don't think there's a single page that doesn't have an annotation on it. In Outdrawn, you are following Noah and Sage. They have a little bit of college beef, college rivalry, and it is a couple years into the future. They are now working at the same comic book company under the same project. They are both leading artists, and so, as you can tell from the cover, one, they have different senses of style, so they have different art style. And they have to work together to figure out how to make this beloved comic book character get like a revamp, and also how they can work together and actually balance each other's ideas off of one another. But then you have a rivalry going on outside of work where they upload to like a webtoons type of website, and there's a competition that says that the most viewed comic at the start of this competition to the end of this competition will get a contract with this company, kind of how webtoons turn into a publishing house, to have their brand new original comic printed and sold in stores, and they are both competing for that top spot. I loved it because you have them working together and getting closer in work, but then you have the rivalry, and they're like, well, I want to beat you at your best, so they're taking care of each other so that they can beat each other at their best. Another thing that I loved, and I'm looking for more in romance books, is that the couple are people outside of the relationship. Like, they have their own things going on outside of the romance. And I know some people think that that's silly, but I read a lot of romance books where I don't think that they would have ever ended up together, or that it would ever have lasted at all. It was just like spice for the sake of spice, which I love. This book is very spicy, but the characters themselves had no depth. They had no personality to them, so I just ended up not caring about them or forgetting about them later on. I think that's why I love the Bergman brothers so much, is because they all have like character depth and storylines apart from just being a couple, and Noah and Sage definitely had that. I'm gonna talk about 3 books next, 2 of which I read in March and 1 of which I just finished in April, and that is the Rebel Blue Ranch series. I have read Done and Dusted. I gave this one a 4.5 star. I read Swift and Saddled. I gave this one a 5 star, and then I read Lost and Lassoed, and I gave that one a 4.75 star. All of them were good. Lost and Lassoed was my favorite one. I'm upping the star rating when it comes out, and I have a physical copy to annotate, because I will be annotating the shit out of that. I can only talk about the couples. I can't talk about how the couples come to be because they're interconnected standalone series, meaning that you will get spoiled if you don't read them in order. So you have the Rebel Blue Ranch. This takes place in Meadowlark, Wyoming. It's a made-up ranch out there, and you are following the Ryder family. There is Emmy Ryder, Wes Ryder, and Gus Ryder. They are all like town sweethearts. Their dad owns the biggest ranch there. He helps a lot of horses retire, and he does horseback riding lessons, and they give back to the community, and they're just a really cute small town vibe. Like, that's the it family in the small town. And every book follows a sibling and their romance, and then the 4th book is going to follow a character that you've seen throughout every single book, and she gets her own love story, and I think I might actually cry. I read like a chapter of that, wanted to bawl my eyes out. But in Done and Dusted, you have Emmy and Luke. They are childhood friends, and it is brother's best friend. There's also a little bit of an age gap between them. Emmy is moving back home to kind of settle down, plant roots in Meadowlark, and she runs into Luke Brooks, and last time she saw him, he was kind of like the town bad boy, and now he's like a pillar of the community. She's like, I don't like that. What's happening here? And they kind of end up working together. He helps her get through some of her anxieties, and she helps him process some like home family trauma that he has. I liked this one a lot. I finished it in like one day. It's obviously, oh, you can't see because the sun has come out. It's very much annotated. Like, it's annotated in that bad boy. I loved it so much that I immediately jumped into Swift and Saddled. I didn't pick up anything else because I couldn't. This one is also annotated, if you couldn't tell. This one follows Wes Ryder, the middle child, and Ada Hart. Ada is an interior designer, and she is coming to Meadowlark to help Wes with a project that is talked about in book 1. And this project means a lot to him. It means a lot to Ada as well. It's her first big break outside of California, and hopefully this can launch her travel interior design career, but at the same time she has some relationship trauma she's trying to deal with, and she's running away from some things. Who knows. She also has that I'm not like other girls, but I want to be like other girls type of thing, which I love in books, because you look around and you're like, I actually do like pink and glitter, and I don't know how to make friends, let alone girlfriends. What do I do? How do I do this? I want that. Like, I want that type of thing. And I just loved Ada's storyline. I love Wes's storyline so much. There's like a baby cow scene in here. He helps a baby cow. The last book I don't have a physical copy because it does not release until November of this year, but I will be scooping up that Barnes & Noble exclusive edition. Best believe that's coming home with me. You are following Gus and Teddy. Teddy is Emmy's best friend. You have seen her throughout all of the books. You love Teddy. I love Teddy. We all collectively love Teddy. And Gus is a big old grumpy single dad, which you meet him and his daughter throughout the other books as well. And they end up in a forced proximity, like nanny situation throughout the summer, and their relationship grows and expands from there. It has its ups and downs, and I would say that that is probably Lila Sage's spiciest book that she's ever written for this series. That was kind of wild. I did devour this book in a week. I saw that it was up on Edelweiss, and I went to go download it, and I immediately started reading it. And now I sit here patiently waiting for the release of the cover, at least, for the 4th book, which I don't think comes out until 2025. Okay, back to March. The last book that I read was Where Sleeping Girls Lie by Frida Epike-Amedie. I went to the book signing at Schuler's Books here in Michigan, and she was with Angela Boley. I believe that's who it is. And they just did like a little Q&A, a little interview back and forth, which was absolutely so cute. I have not read Ace of Spades yet, but again, reading their newest book, going back to the backlist, this book was so good, and I think about it all the time, and I recommend it all the time. This is important. I do tell people to check the trigger warnings and do not take them lightly, because while this is a young adult mystery with games and puzzles, that's actually what fell out of this book, was a puzzle that I solved. It is a dark YA book, and I loved it. Also, the narrator for this book was phenomenal. I think I listened to most of these as an audiobook at some point. So Done and Dusted, Lost and Lassoed, narrators were amazing. I listened to those on Spotify. And then Sleeping Girls Lie, the narrator was amazing. I listened to that on Kobo, so I own that one. I might actually go back and re-listen to it. It is a very slow audiobook, but this is a very slow-paced story. You are following Sade Hussein, who has been homeschooled her entire life, and her junior year of high school, she decides to go to boarding school. She has recently become an orphan, so she has two choices: either figure it out in the UK or go live with family in the States. And she's like, we're gonna go to boarding school, have a normal life. Let's go. The first night she gets there, she takes a tour with her roommate slash house sister, and she goes to sleep, wakes up, and Elizabeth, the house sister, is missing. Everyone thinks Sade did it because, you know, no one knows her. She's new to the school. But she is convinced that there is something else happening. And so is Liz's best friend, Basil, like the plant. He is convinced that she did not go and leave on her own accord. One thing about boarding schools is they are messy, and there's always going to be something. If you like secret societies, if you like outing really bad people, if you like puzzles and unreliable narrators and main characters, you will love Where Sleeping Girls Lie. Now we're officially into April, so I'm going to put April stats right here as I gab a little bit. I've already talked about Lost and Lassoed because it was a part of that series. And then I read a little novella. I tried to do a vlog. One of them is on pause and one of them's kind of failed. So let's get into those. Book of April was Wicked Beauty. I finished it in the beginning of April and I gave it like a 3 star, not even a 3.5 star. I gave it a 3-star book, and every time I think about it, I'm very disappointed in it because it is a Katie Roberts Dark Olympus book. This is book 3 in the Dark Olympus series. I can't really explain a lot of it without spoiling 1 and 2. Basically, it is a throuple between Helen, Patroclus and Achilles. They are all in competition for one of the 13 political titles, and it's the title of Ares. You'll find out what happens to Ares if you read the first 2 books. I did not think that the stakes were as high as they should have been. The stakes in book 1 and book 2 were like so up there. I loved it. The stakes in book 3, it is smutty. There's a lot of smut in here. There's a lot of getting attached when we shouldn't be getting attached. I did annotate it, but I just didn't feel like the stakes were so high, and I felt like the last few chapters, things should have been explained earlier in the book for me to like care about why they're going through this and to understand other characters' motivations. Then we were on an upswing because I read Thieves' Gambit by Kavion Lewis. I listened to this as an audiobook. The narrator was phenomenal. Like, oh my goodness, she was so good. And I loved just like getting sucked into the story, but then I would have to do something, so I would like throw on my headphones and listen to the story, and then just to sit back down and continue to read. And I have started the arc for book 2 because I just could not live with that cliffhanger. In Thieves' Gambit, you're following Roz Quest, who comes from a family of con artists, thieves, whatever you want to call them, but her mother and her aunt all live on a small island away from her family. They don't really talk, and so she's been secluded most of her life. She just wants a normal summer, so what does she do? Plan an escape route to a gymnastics camp. That escape route goes horribly wrong when her mother gets kidnapped on their very last assignment together. That's literally on the dust jacket, no spoilers. So she has to figure out a way to get her back, and she's heard of the Thieves' Gambit, which they grant one wish to the winner of the gambit. The Thieves' Gambit is basically just the organization, like this giant entity, is looking for the best thief in a generation, and so they have this gambit every like couple of years or so to see who the best thief is. They get a contract with the organization for a year, they get their wish, and then they're kind of like just held really high in society. They're known as like legends and whatnot. So she enters this with like 12 other competitors, and there are betrayals and backstabbing, heists. If you love Ocean's 11 and the Inheritance games, with a little bit of Knives Out, you will probably eat this book up like I did. It took me probably 3 days to finish it. And I am reading book 2. That's going a little bit slowly right now because I don't know if it's a trilogy or not. I hope it's just a duology. The last book that I read in April was, hold on, it's a really long title. All I Wanted Was Sushi, but I Got Abducted by Aliens Instead. Book 1 in the Bubble Babes series. I could feel myself, after reading like so many great books, I felt myself sliding into a reading slump, which I hated. So I just scrolled on Libby until I found a little 4 or 5 hour audiobook. I found The Bubble Babes, and I've wanted to read that one for a really long time. So I decided to check it out and like listen to it while I was cleaning my shelf, which, by the way, I knew it was spicy, but I didn't know how spicy it was. Holy heck, that was crazy, in my opinion, insane. I actually enjoyed it. It is very reminiscent of, oh good lord, the sun, hello. Reminiscent of Ice Planet Barbarians, but not like, I can't compare them, but if you like one, you'll probably like the other, in my opinion. I love IPB, and I'm like 8 books into it, and this has 3 books that are currently out, and the 4th one's just been announced. I can't remember what it was called. I think All I Wanted to Do Was Read a Book, but I Got Abducted by Aliens Instead. I don't know. So my plan is to continue with that series because, one, all of the audiobooks are available through my library, and I would rather listen to them via library than like buy them anywhere else. And they're like 5 hours, so I can do like a lot of chores and tasks in that time of finishing like 4 or 5 books. I just realized I never told you what it's about. You were following, oh, what is her name? You were following Opal, who was abducted by aliens when she had a very terrible day, and she went to the store to get sushi. Next thing you know, she wakes up and she is on an alien transport ship to a dance club in outer space. I think that's what it is. They're on their way to this dance club she locks eyes with this like alien in outer space traffic, and they kind of have this like moment together. It's a spicy moment, not a cute one. They have this moment together, and he follows said transport bus to go find her. It's a lot of politics. It's a lot of space politics, and it's a lot of like, you get the IPB from the ending of the story, so I can't really get into that without spoiling this very short novella. Miss Monster Romance. I'm diving back in head first. Something about monster romance, alien romance, is that when the declarations of love are happening, you're so caught off guard. You're like, oh my god. And even the kid, they're like, no man has ever said that back on Earth. No human man would ever think to say something like that. Not for lack of creativity, but simply because, what are you saying to me right now? This is a lot of love to be declared at like 7 in the morning. And I think that's why I love monster romance, because it's just outlandish and it's full of love and love. It is also full of like spice, but like it's full of love. And it's just really cute and fun to read. Anyways, that's all for me. Thanks for sitting here and gabbing with me about all of the books that I read in March and April. Hopefully I can finish. I'm in the middle of actively reading 3 books right now. Probably gonna start a 4th one. So hopefully I'll have a decent May wrap up, because I've started a lot of books in different places, so by the time I finish one, I can just jump to another one. Until next time, I'm gonna put all my socials at the end of the video, and you can find me somewhere else on the internet. Happy reading.